You may be seated on your couches and recliners and carpeted floors or wherever you're watching from this at home. Today is Laetare Sunday, known as the Sunday of Joy. The church began to cry out at the very opening of this Eucharist, "Rejoice!" I don't know about you, but I'm not feeling a whole lot of joy. There seems to be darkness and the shadow of death all around us. Our whole life has been upended in these last week, 2 weeks. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of fear. I could hear it in your text messages to me and your emails and phone calls. It's heavy. It's heavy. We don't know what's going to happen. In a lot of ways, we're like the blind man in the story that we had today. He had no idea what was going on with him. He was blind from birth. And then he hears words from Jesus that says, "Night is coming when no one can work." Sound familiar? People are working from home. People have lost their jobs. People are laid off. We see the number of cases from the coronavirus increase. We see death tolls across the world increase. Who would have thought we would ever have a situation where we may not be able to publicly gather for Easter? Or that I would have to put up almost 200 faces in front of me, pictures on chairs, because we can't even physically gather because of worship. It feels pretty dark. But that's precisely why the church right now says, "Rejoice." It's so contrary to what's happening, right? She even takes upon herself rose, which we know, I've been talking about this for years, is the color of the dawn. In the midst of all of this darkness, the church says, day will come. The night will not last forever. Dawn shall arise. Christ will be the final answer. But right now, we're in the midst of the darkness. To me, there's no coincidences in any of this, by the way. We right now are in the midst of a season that's called Lent, but that's only the word that's used in the English world. Lent comes from an old English word meaning renewal or springtime. But everywhere else, it's called the Great 40 Days. And in Latin, quadragesima, which comes from the Latin word quadrantina, which means 40. By the way, that's where we get the word quarantine from. The word quarantine comes from the Latin word meaning 40 days. In Venice, if a ship would come up that was filled with people that had some form of sickness or disease, they were quarantined. They were laid out to the waters for 40 days before they would allow them onto land. But I find it fascinating that the word for Lent, the 40 days, has its root in the word, what we get, quarantine. I always say every year, at the beginning of Lent, normally on Transfiguration Sunday, if you go back and watch the sermon from Transfiguration Sunday, even though that it was our parish meeting, I talked about this, that every Christian should come out of Lent a substantially different Christian than we began it. Every Christian should come out of Lent, quadrantesima. Every Christian should come out of quarantine a different and substantially different Christian than we began it. Boy, that's going to happen this year in more extraordinary ways than we could have ever dreamed. In the midst of this darkness, God is doing something amazing. I'm not saying God caused the plague, no way, shape, or form. But I do know our Lord will use whatever for working out the good of those who love him. That's why we could be joyful today, because there is something deeply powerful happening in our midst. What's the whole point of Lent? I talk about it every year. You should be getting rid of the idols in your life. Lent is a time where the Lord takes us during this 40-day period and destroys the idols that we've been worshiping. I also find that it's not a coincidence that this plague and pestilence that we're fighting right now is a type of virus is called the coronavirus. It's COVID-19. It's a type of coronavirus. But does anyone know where that word corona means in Latin? It actually means crown. It actually means crown. What I'm seeing happening in our midst is that God is revealing to us those things that we have given crowns to, those things that we have worshiped, and maybe even unconsciously have worshiped and just gone with the motions, are now falling around us. Some people think that this is an end time thing or a doomsday thing. I can tell you it's apocalyptic. Now, the Greek word apocalyptic means reveal. That's what it truly means, reveal. This is not the end. We will make it through all of this. But what is God revealing? God is revealing in our lives that which we have given crowns to, which are now falling, that aren't of Him. And God's glory is revealing in our midst. I love that line that He says to the blind man. When they were asking who sinned, his parents, or he was born blind because of his own sins. And Jesus said he was born blind so that God's works may be revealed. God's works are right now being revealed. And the idols that we have made, the crowns that we've given to all of these false realities are falling. The stock market's in free fall. Our worship of money has fallen. I always say in Columbus, Ohio, the main god that we have given a crown to is sports. Tend to worship that deity with an animal sacrifice of a pigskin football in the stadium of the temple of the horseshoe. But there's no sports happening right now. The I can do it by myself, or I have security God that we've all worshiped, that's gone really quickly. What is God doing? Renewal is happening, my brothers and sisters. God is at work mightily in our midst. He's restoring our sight. We have become blind to the things that we've given over this importance to that now are nothing. And the things that truly are important are what is still standing. I don't know if you saw on Facebook, there's a poem that's going around, which I kind of find awesome. It's by Father Richard Hendrick. He is a Capuchin friar. He's a priest in Ireland, and he wrote a poem called Lockdown. I'm just going to read you a little bit of that. Yes, there is fear. Yes, there is isolation. Yes, there is panic buying. Yes, there is sickness. Yes, there is even death. But they say that in Wuhan, after so many years of noise, you can hear the birds again. They say that just after a few weeks of quiet. The sky is no longer thick with fumes, but blue and gray and clear. They say that in the streets of Assisi, people are singing to each other across the empty squares, keeping their windows open so that those who are alone may hear the sounds of family around them. They say that a hotel in the west of Ireland is offering free meals and delivery to the homebound. Today, a young woman I know is busy spreading flyers with her number through the neighborhood so that the elders may have someone to call on. Today, churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples are preparing to welcome and shelter the homeless, the sick, the weary. All over the world, people are slowing down and reflecting. All over the world, people are looking at their neighbors in a new way. All over the world, people are waking up to a new reality, to how big we really are, to how little control we really have, and to what really matters: to love. I'm watching families who probably haven't had a meal together now have every meal together at home. I'm watching the stories of, Father, I don't have time to pray, or we can't come to Mass because little Johnny has this event, or that Susie has this event, to now actually spending time praying. Our attendance, even though it's virtual, is the highest it's ever been. We went from maybe 2 people praying morning prayer, 3 people praying morning prayer every day, to 65 people praying morning prayer, according to our last numbers. Last week's Eucharist, over 300 watched that, and that was including the 90 who were here for all 3 Masses. The bitter political divide that has so divided our nation is being put aside, at least by people on the ground. The pundits online can do whatever they want, but we're all in this thing together, no matter what your political gang sign is. People are actually getting out and walking in nature again and take advantage of the beauty of creation. And I'm watching people cling to the Lord, laying down all the false crowns of empire, laying down all of this false idol worship, and giving the crown to the only person who deserves it, which is Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So what do we got to do to make it through this quarantine of 40 days? And I use that number symbolically because we don't know how long this is going to go on. Well, the church has always given us 3 tools during the time of quadrantesima, or quarantine of the 40 days. What are the 3 tools? Number 1, we got to pray. We got to pray. You got plenty of time right now to pray. We're live streaming morning prayer Tuesday through Friday, 9 a.m. We're going to have Eucharist every Sunday. As much as we can, unless we get locked down or whatever, but I will find a way to make sure that Mass is broadcast, because the Mass is for all of us and for the world. Pray home as a family. Pray the daily office. You have plenty of time to carve out prayer, to cling to the Lord, to cling to Him during this time, to offer Him the crown of your life, to make Him the most important, and then you will have peace. Fasting. I've been joking with Sister Debbie and Father Rob that I think Lent should be canceled because that's all we're doing right now is fasting. It's almost a forced fast. We're even fasting from the Eucharist because we can't be here together. But we can fast by giving up all of those idols, and actually by doing that in-home shelter. It actually is good for our brothers and sisters, even if we're healthy, to stay away, to fast as much as possible for the life. That's what fasting is, for the life of the world. Almsgiving. This is the time right now where the church may not be in the building, but the church has got to be church. We have to support all those. And believe me, we're going to have a lot that need support, who are going to be hungry, who are going to need financial things. We are helping New Albany Food Pantry. We're also helping Grin. You've seen that on the emails. We're looking for cereal, oatmeal, pastas, and pasta sauces. There is a box outside of the church where you literally can just drop things off. You don't have to be around anyone. Just drop them in the box. It's a lock-sealed box. And then we will take them to the drop-off points to help stock the shelves of food pantries and our neighbors around us. Reach out to each other. We don't got to be isolated necessarily. We can still be social, following all the rules, but by phone and by the internet. Call your friends, call your family ones, call your neighbors. We have a phone tree that's going around here at the parish. You will hear from various people. I'm making my way through the directory this week just to touch base. Call various people, touch base, Zoom chat, whatever you got to do. Sit on your balcony and sing. But it's a way for us to remain connected. Yes, there is darkness around us. But the church today reminds us that that darkness is not the end. Dawn is coming. This long night of the quarantine and the virus will eventually come to an end. We will once again gather together, not only as a parish family and as a Christian community, but as a nation and as a world. But I hope we come out of this substantially different than we entered it. Putting important things like Jesus and our family and our friends and actions of love at the highest level in our lives instead of all of these other false gods that we've just compiled over the years. Death is not the end. Resurrection is the end. This disease is not the end. The Lord of life and our great physician is the end. This darkness is not the end. The light of Christ is the end. This broken creation is not the end. The new creation is the end. So yes, we could rejoice today, knowing that God is doing an awesome thing. We can resound what St. Paul has said to us. Sleeper, awake. Rise from the dead of these false idols. Christ will shine upon you. To Christ be the glory, for he is our light, and he is the King of kings, the one who deserves the crown, for he is Lord of all forever and ever. Amen.